Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's presentation. I'm excited to share with you a fascinating short film titled My Daughter's Emotional First Date. This film, created by Bhuvan Bam, masterfully blends heartfelt emotion with sharp humor. We'll explore how it captures the modern male struggle, balancing nervous sincerity and social awkwardness. So, let's dive in and see what makes this story so relatable and engaging. Let's talk about the story behind the film, My Daughter's Emotional First Date. In this viral short, Bhuvan Bam masterfully combines heartfelt emotion with sharp humor to really showcase the modern male experience. It's all about the tension between nervous sincerity and social awkwardness, which many of us can relate to. The narrative unfolds through a mix of satire, warmth, and painfully relatable moments, capturing the chaos a young man faces as he prepares for his very first date. What's interesting is that beneath the jokes and exaggerated dialogues, there's a deeper insight into how love, insecurity, and ego clash in today's digital age. This story not only entertains, but also reflects the complex emotions that define contemporary relationships. It ties into the overall theme of how modern love involves navigating vulnerability and social expectations, often with a healthy dose of humor. Let's start with the opening scene of the film, which features a rehearsed romantic speech. It almost borders on poetic absurdity, with lines like, "No pair of eyes in the entire world is as beautiful as yours, and all my sorrows go away when I see your smile." It's sweet, yes, but also a little clumsy and innocent. This really captures how young people tend to overthink acts of affection, trying to be perfect, but often missing the point. This scene sets an important tone for the whole film. It shows a young man who's desperate to get everything just right, yet he's completely unaware that what truly matters is sincerity, being genuine. His nervousness isn't just funny, it highlights a bigger truth about modern dating. We all feel the pressure to impress, but at the same time, we're terrified of rejection. That fear can make us lose touch with spontaneity, the very thing that makes love feel real and meaningful. So, in a way, this scene reminds us that sometimes our overthinking and fear can get in the way of authentic connection. And that ties back into our overall theme of understanding the nervous poetry that underpins first love. So in this slide, we're looking at how the friends' dating advice is really a mix of masculine comedy and genuine anxiety. As the guy seeks advice from his friend, the humor starts to escalate. It moves from simple jokes to these exaggerated displays of confidence. Like asking, "Should I tickle her?" And then the friend quickly responds, "She'll beat you up." I'm talking about sense of humor. What's funny about this exchange is also what makes it symbolic. It shows how men often approach dating like they're performing, like it's some kind of exam or script that they need to memorize. The advice they get is full of contradictions. Be funny but not too funny, be confident but not cocky, be interested but not desperate. This seemingly absurd list of rules actually captures the emotional core of the episode. Beneath all the laughter, there's a real truth here. Dating today is a delicate dance between being authentic and fitting into social expectations. It's about finding that balance, which can feel pretty overwhelming at times. In this slide, we're exploring how the episode satirizes consumer culture through the lens of everyday habits like drinking coffee, eating burgers, and ordering frappuccinos. One of the most memorable moments is the monologue about overpriced coffee shops and fast food disappointments. At first glance, it seems like simple humor, comparing the cost of a coffee to setting your money on fire. But beneath that, there's a deeper critique about how commercialization influences our perceptions of romance and connection. In modern dating, emotional bonds often get wrapped up in consumer rituals, whether it's buying an expensive latte, going to a fancy dinner, or catching a movie. These acts can sometimes mask true intimacy, turning love into a sort of lifestyle choice. The protagonist's frustration here is quite telling. It's a quiet rebellion against this trend, a longing for genuine simplicity in a world that increasingly equates love with materialism. So this scene really ties into the broader theme of how consumerism shapes our relationships and perceptions, reminding us to look beyond the surface and question what really matters when it comes to connection and love. So here we have the eye contact disaster, a lesson in nonverbal chaos. When his friend tells him to maintain eye contact with the phrase, "Look at her with love," things quickly go off the rails. Instead of a warm, heartfelt gaze, it turns into what I can only describe as a terrifying stare, bordering on something almost psychotic. What's really interesting is that behind the humor of this awkward situation lies a deeper point. Eye contact is one of our most fundamental nonverbal tools for connection. It's supposed to convey sincerity, warmth, and interest. But here, it becomes a battleground between genuine emotion and just plain awkwardness. This scene highlights that the protagonist isn't lacking affection. He's lacking what we call emotional literacy. That's the ability to read, understand, and express emotions effectively. And sadly, many young people today struggle with this skill, especially in a world increasingly dominated by screens and digital communication. So, what this teaches us is that mastering nonverbal cues like eye contact isn't just about looking at someone. It's about connecting sincerely. And that's a key part of building real, authentic relationships, something we all need to keep in mind as we navigate our social worlds. So here, where honesty and oversharing come into play. When we tell someone to be honest, we might not realize how literal that can be. In this case, he takes it quite literally and admits he's sore after leg day at the gym. Now, that might seem innocent, but it's actually a classic example of how vulnerability without self-awareness can backfire. It can end up sabotaging our connections rather than strengthening them. Today, men are often encouraged to open up, but the truth is, many of us haven't really been shown how to do that effectively. We get caught in this tricky space, trying to be real and authentic, but sometimes crossing into oversharing or being reckless without meaning to. This scene, while comedic, really humanizes that confusion. It highlights that delicate line between being genuine and oversharing, and how easily it can go wrong if we're not mindful. Ultimately, it's about understanding that vulnerability requires a bit of self-awareness, knowing when to share and when to hold back for the sake of connection. Let's talk about the so-called bill dilemma and how it highlights the gender politics of payment. This scene, where a 40 rupee argument unfolds over who should pay, is quite humorous but also quite telling. It's become a symbolic moment that reflects broader ideas about modern gender roles. For instance, the friend insists, "She'll offer to pay, but you must insist," a line that captures a classic masculine ritual. Despite the age of equality, this ritual persists, illustrating how some traditional norms remain ingrained. What's interesting is how the dialogue, exaggerated as it may be, subtly exposes how these outdated norms still influence young men. Every move in this scene becomes a kind of negotiation between pride, politeness, and how one perceives themselves and others. It's a small moment, but it reveals a lot about the ongoing tug-of-war between evolving social expectations and ingrained habits. Ultimately, this scene connects to our overall theme, how gender roles continue to shape everyday interactions, often in subtle, humorous ways. It reminds us that even in modern times, these traditional scripts haven't fully disappeared. They're just played out in new contexts. So, one of the most psychologically interesting scenes is when the advice is to win her best friend's heart. Now, this isn't about manipulating anyone, but rather understanding social strategy. In today's world, with group chats and online validation, attraction isn't just a private matter anymore. It's a collective judgment. What your friends think really matters. The advice from the friend reflects a pretty hard truth. In modern romance, social endorsement can truly make or break a relationship. That's why he says, the real key is always with the best friend. But, as we often see, our protagonist tends to misfire here. He mistakes social intelligence for flattery, turns charm into chaos, and ends up triggering a complete misunderstanding that ruins the date even before it begins. This scene perfectly highlights how important social context is when it comes to attraction today, and how misreading that can lead to trouble. As we reach the ending of our film, we're faced with a line that really hits home about the human condition. If luck was in people's own hands, they wouldn't wipe their *******s with them. It's a bit crude, yes, but it's also quite philosophical. It captures that sense of disillusionment we sometimes feel when romantic ideals clash with reality. What's really important here is understanding that, despite all his preparation, advice, and effort, the young man's failure isn't because he lacks love. It's more about trying too hard to make it happen, to control everything. It's a reminder that sometimes love and luck don't align no matter how much we want them to. This ties back to the overall theme of the presentation, that life, especially love, often involves a mix of effort and chance. We can do everything right, but still, things might not turn out as we plan. And that's okay. It's part of the human experience to accept that some things are beyond our control, no matter how much we wish they were.